The messiahs in this world are rebels. Listen to them talk. They are, and they can be a little triggering for people because they're honest and they're direct and they hold you accountable. Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel Soul Awakening with Shantia. Welcome to another podcast episode for the Soul Awakening podcast. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about kingship and queenship. And of course, we can't talk about kingship and queenship without first detailing how did we inherit the kingdom as a child. As we know, in the healing process, in the mystical healing process of us inheriting the kingdom or having access to the kingdom, it's a spiraling sort of non-linear experience. It's not a perfect line. So you might find that you go through processes that are repetitive, things that you're having to repeat, because the divine is often teaching you how to rinse and repeat. They're teaching you how to push momentum behind certain ideas or get more refined with certain ideas and let go of certain concepts and ideas. So if you haven't already, go ahead and check out any of the other episodes of my podcast. In the previous episode, I did talk about the divine child, and I used a little princess, just clips from it to reference it. For our Saturn in Pisces transit video that I will be making, where I talk about also the 6th planetary conjunction we're having in Pisces according to sidereal or Vedic Astrology, I'm also going to be using a little princess. And I'm going to be using the 6th episode mini-series that was created in 1987 to reference it because it has more of the details that were in the book. And it kind of blew my mind. Like, I guess you could think of Harry Potter, all of these, the one protagonist stories. A lot of these kids, they're referencing in many ways the divine child in so many of us. So I feel like that taps into even Harry Potter. Like, I watched the movies, but Harry Potter also tracks very well with that divine child and then stepping into kingship and leadership. I will be creating a Saturn in Pisces video where I go in depth about it, and then it'll be a 2-part series. So I'll go in depth about the themes with the video clips and the references, and I'll also use the Count of Monte Cristo because that's very similar. The Count of Monte Cristo also represents more of the kingship version of the journey to inheriting the kingdom. So it's like when you step into responsibility, what is expected of you. And then for the second part of the video, the Saturn in Pisces shift transit that we're going to be talking about, I will be referencing your sun, ascendant, and moon sign and specifically tell you how it's going to be impacting those signs according to your Vedic chart. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into this topic. So I created a PDF file. If you guys are interested in accessing it, it's going to be in the Google Drive for you to access, and you can reference this as you're watching, or you can reference this as I'm going over it. Sorry, you can reference this afterwards. You can download it if you want to. That is what it's there for. And I decided to create this because I like to be organized, and to me, if I can see different segments and parts of the pieces coming together, it's about a lot easier for me to understand. But as we know, spiritual healing and going on the mystic journey it's like an intermix of things. So you might find that you're experiencing level 1 and a little bit of level 4 at the same time, level 3, and it just seems like it's somewhat all over the place. But there is a gradual process in our purification, in healing, and us learning about ourselves. Okay, so I'm going to go over the guideline that I created here, or the chart I created here. So starting with part 1, this is where we are more tuned into being the divine child. So this is where the fairy tale becomes very apparent. You know how we all grew up with fairy tales? We all grew up with myths and stories as kids, where we saw the world as magical and mystical. Well, even as an adult, you're still connected to these fairy tales, and some part of you is attached to it. And there's a reason why. You know, it's probably helping you to unlock some kind of inner magic within you. So it starts with curiosity. Even in adulthood, when you go on your spiritual journey, this calls for you to open up to your inner child magic and to the divine. So at first it might feel like a deepening of curiosity, where you just want to, you want to know. So you're driven by a curiosity, a vast imagination, and wanting to experience enlightenment. This is where the divine child is given access to the kingdom and goes down the rabbit hole, like Alice, of wanting to know God's divine design. So this is where we're curious and we want to know, how does this world work? Like, why do people think that way? And why do people operate that way? And kids, they're constantly asking questions because they're filled with infinite curiosity. They want to know how this world works. And in order for you to embark on your spiritual journey, that's when you start becoming more curious. You have to want to know why, what's going on. And this is where spontaneously you lean into this energy of enlightenment. And I feel like enlightenment for a lot of us is a spontaneous experience. It just sort of happens. We have some sort of awestruck moment. I had mine somewhere between 2012 and 2015. I don't remember the specific dates. I think it was around 2012, 2013-ish. I read The Alchemist and I felt something shift in me. So there again is a reference to a fairy tale. Like The Alchemist is a fictional story and it's like a fairy tale. Santiago is another example of a divine child who inherits the kingdom. He inherited the gold. The enlightenment happens spontaneously. Oh my gosh, your eyes are open, you're awestruck. And this is when you're initiated into your training, or your initiation starts to really activate and the wheel of karma turns. So you become curious, you dive into spirituality, but then this is where things get really challenging. So you step into part 1 of your initiation. So to me, this is purification of ignorance. Now, I think a lot of people, if they see spirituality as just one note, one dimension, just fun and light, then they're missing the other side to it. There has to be a process where one goes through a purification of ignorance and the fairy tale starts to fall apart. All of these sweet stories fall apart. It falls apart, just like Harry Potter, right? He was born, I forgot who his parents were, but he was born to such a sweet couple, a magical couple, seems like he was going to have a good life. And then things got dark. He became an orphan, and he received poor treatment from people around him. But this is all to build him up. So you go through a purification of ignorance. Of course, you're probably going through some of this in your actual childhood as well, where, you're having to face your fears and deal with certain obstacles. But as a child, you don't process it. You don't process things as a child. You're not fully developed yet to handle that. You process things fully as an adult when you're consciously making a choice to go on this pathway. So this is where the child goes through the initiation, which I'm always going to refer to you as the child of divine, the divine child, because that is who we are. No matter what age we are a child in the eyes of God, in the eyes of the divine. So the child goes through an initial maturation process as it learns to harness the power of their spirit by cultivating fearlessness, which is resilience to darkness, evil, whatever obstacles that are showing up in your life. Courage. You're developing courage and you're building up a passion for doing what you love. Spirit is always calling you to do what you love. So the difficult part of this experience is that some of us will pursue it. A lot of us are passionate. Those of us who are ready to elevate into higher states of consciousness, we're very passionate and we're very sometimes set on wanting to make things happen. And doors are going to shut because you're being called to purify your ego. So while you'll get access to certain things going on, doors will close because you're going through a purification of ignorance. It's not about your selfish desires. And your selfish desires are going to lead you down a path of destruction, ultimately. So the universe will give you some things, but it will hold back a lot because it wants you to understand what comes with getting things, material things or experience in life. There's responsibility that comes with it. There is baggage sometimes that comes with it. A lot of people inherit things. There's a lot of baggage and energy attached to certain manifestations. But they want you to, if you're on that path, to true kingship and queenship of inheriting the kingdom, at this point through the fairytale experience, you humbled yourself, right? You said, I'm open for anything. And that's exactly the type of attitude they need from you to start your journey, your adventure. Be open for anything. Because now you're open to knowing anything. You're open to knowing the truth. They can re-educate you without rigidity. You don't have that rigidity holding you back. So the ego often takes credit for this. Even as we're battling in the field, we're courageously overcoming obstacles, the ego's like, yeah, look how great I'm doing. I'm so courageous. I'm seeking God. I'm seeking enlightenment. The ego is very much active in this initial part of the spiritual seeking journey. And this is where we often lean into spiritual bypassing a lot. The child rebels against its initial programming during this part 1 initiation of external gratification and validation. So this is the part where people really become a rebel. You see people live in van life and leaving their jobs, their 9-to-5s. Yeah, that's part 1 of the initiation. That's like, oh, okay, I'm ready to release the status quo of society and do my own thing. But that's just part 1. There's so much more to this adventure here. So maybe you're rebelling against what your parents taught you, or you're rebelling against any kind of pre-designed, deficient programming that is working against you doing what you love, following your passion, enjoying life, being courageous. So maybe you become an artist. You really do start to create a business, something that is based around something that you really love. You're being courageous. You're being resilient. But that is part 1. Sorry, part 1 of your initiation. The next part of your initiation is where you start to learn non-resistance. So this is where circumstances intensify as the child is brought to their knees and comes to understand the totality of surrender through sacrifice, forgiveness, where we release judgment, and non-resistance. They have descended into the underworld and must contend with their shadow. The ego starts to lose most of its power. Now, when you decided to do what you love, follow your heart versus follow reasoning, you are weakening the ego. But the ego can still feed off of you seeking some sort of external gratification or validation, where you're like, oh, if I get the trophy or the reward, or someone tells me I'm doing a good job, then I know I'm on the right path. But part 2, God is really going to call for you to be brought to your knees. And truly what we're called to do are karmic relationship situations, whether it's with money, career path, life purpose, or relationships. We're being called to forgive and release judgment of ourselves and others. And the only way you can release judgment of yourself and others is when you are put in dire circumstances. That's the only way. Otherwise, we are pre-designed to judge people, and we're pre-designed to think that people are less than us, right? That spiritual ego might be building, oh, look at me seeking enlightenment, following the path of God. But then it's like, but how can you truly be a servant to the people if you think you're better than anybody? And the only way that we understand that we're not better than anyone is we just simply have to be brought to our knees, where we're the ones who have to ask for help. We're the ones who have to surrender. We're the ones who have to sacrifice our comfort and our preconceived egoic expectations of how we thought things were going to unfold. Well, I thought if I just followed my heart and my passion, that surely things were going to manifest. No. Then you are without discipline. We learned adaptability when we were put in situations we cannot control, and where we're called to release control, and we're called to be non-resistant in resistant situations where there is conflict, there is tension. We're the ones who have to find the peace in spite of the tension that exists in that reality, in that environment. Can you find a way to release judgment? Well, you're going to continuously experience that pattern until your training is done. I'm not going to even say until you feel like you're over it. They want you to keep going through it for as long as you need to keep going through it. And honestly, just like Michael Singer says, if something is bothering you, it's up to you to decide to feel better. You got to go inward. You got to go inward. So this is where the divine child has descended into the underworld, and they must contend with their shadow. The shadow is the parts of ourselves we do not like. The underworld is the dark side of life. Things don't go the way that you want. Turns out that bad things don't just happen to bad people. Turns out it happens to all of us. We all get the same treatment of hardship, disappointment, rejection, harshness, unkind treatment. We all have to go through that. The other day I was watching Carolyn Miss, and she was talking about the crucifixion. What is the crucifixion about? Jesus is betrayed. He's humiliated. He's accused of a crime he did not commit. He's abandoned. He's beaten. You are going to go through a combination of these experiences. And this is where we really humble ourselves and we start to see it happens to all of us. Nobody's special. We all get the same treatment. And our ego is going to be like, but I'm the chosen one. I'm the divine child. Surely it's up to you. Chosen ones are the ones who choose themselves. They're the ones who choose to do the work. That's what a chosen one is. I choose to do the work. Or something is choosing through me, perhaps, however you want to see it. So you experience some sort of injustice, pettiness, self-pity, self-destruction, venom, complaining, vampire energy, bitterness, suffering. You're angry at the world. And personally going through this journey for myself, there's many times where I'm like, I want to do the right thing. And there's so many times I've been brought to my knees where I just have to surrender. It's not up to me. It's not up to me deciding, hey, look how great of a job I'm doing at my healing work. Surely God is just going to support me when I need it. Those people who are talking about control in manifestation, that's still egoic manifestation. Your ego is very attached, and there is no true happiness because your happiness is still attached to when I manifest something, I will be happy. And they'll tell you, just imagine it. Okay. But at some point through your initiation process, it doesn't matter how well you're healing, how well you're envisioning what it is that you want. It's just not going to come. It doesn't matter how well you are healing, you're doing the work. You're still going to be brought to your knees where you're asked to surrender. And there's no other option because the universe is trying to show you your ego has no power, and it doesn't have the power it keeps convincing you it has. It doesn't matter how much you suffer and struggle and feel like a victim. Your ego has hypnotized you into believing that you are a victim. And that's what the universe is trying to show you. Doesn't matter what circumstances you're in. Never a victim. Always free. Always free. Always free to surrender. Doesn't matter if you're sitting in a prison cell itself. You are still a divine child. God is still watching over you, loves you, and is telling you you are free today. It doesn't matter your circumstances or situation. I don't care if you don't have any education, you have a 3rd grade level of education. Irrelevant. Traumatized childhood, happy childhood. Irrelevant. Just like everybody else, we all have to surrender. So, part 2 of your initiation, where you have to experience non-resistance, this is where your ego really starts to weaken. It really starts to weaken. And you can feel it energetically. It's so hard for you to make choices where you're not following your heart, where you're not being honest. It's hard for you to go against what the divine has willed into your life. The thing is, the divine wills everything into our life, but now you're becoming aware of it. And it's that awareness that empowers you. Everybody is run by the divine will, but because they're not aware of it, they feel disempowered in life. They don't understand that some of the things that are unfolding, even if it's tragedy, hardship, or heartbreak, they don't understand that this was divinely willed into their life. This was on purpose. Why would the divine will this trauma, this pain, and this hurt into my life? Because you can handle it. And because at the core, no matter what, you are free, you're loved, and you're divinely protected. And the universe is really challenging you at this point to think about what that is. Stop fighting what has been divinely willed into your life. Things are naturally unfolding. It doesn't matter what I do, where I've been at in my life. It doesn't matter what I do. I cannot do nothing. And at times it's so just feeling like that. Oh, I can't do anything. That's disempowering. But when I say, but this is what my soul is doing. My soul can do anything. My soul wants this to happen. I feel empowered because I know that it's just the right thing that needs to happen. And that makes me feel calm and content. And I'm no longer resisting it. Even if I'm in a cage, I'm not resisting it. Because I know at some point that door is just going to open. And I have to experience the illusion for what it is. All right, now you're ready for part 3 of your initiation. This is where you become a leader in training. The child recognizes true grace, integrity, and honor, as contrast makes them discerning. Gathering the knowledge and wisdom they have gained through hardship, they start to practice true compassion by giving back. Old habits start to quickly be replaced with pure intentions, and the ego becomes very weak. So in part 2 of the initiation, that's also where the ego loses most of its power. It loses a lot of its power. It gets very weak at that point. Part 3 of your initiation, that's the empowering part. This is where you start to recognize what your struggles, your obstacles have actually gifted you. It gifted you with knowledge. It gifted you with experiential wisdom. Now that you have truly suffered, experienced the lows of lows or the roots of hell, you've experienced the contrast. The contrast happens, right? Through this, so any kind of retraction or contraction, any type of retraction that we experience where we're kind of suffocated or we're put in a tight space, either financially, relationships, anything, any kind of struggles that's put us in between a rock and a hard place, is only compressing you and putting pressure on you to experience a huge inner expansion. Look at all the athletes. Look at people who have succeeded beyond people's wild imagination. So much trauma, so much contrast, so much difficulty, so much darkness. And at some point, almost every single person that has achieved the high of heights has felt suicidal. So know you're not alone in your anxiety and your depression. It is part of the initiation. It's part of the human experience we're here to have. We're here to experience these emotions so that we can understand where true power comes from. And when we don't understand where true power comes from, we go to external validation and gratification to compensate for our inner wounds. When the universe is trying to tell you, you heal those wounds by learning what you are and what you're not. You're not the wounds. That's temporary problems. You're not your wounds, you're not your problems, and you're most certainly not your circumstances. You're pure, divine child. And if you're becoming conscious of that, congratulations. You're getting access to you've been given access to the kingdom. You have the keys to true happiness. So Carolyn Miss likes to reference the castle as the soul as well. We get the kingdom. The kingdom of heaven is the castle. The castle is the soul. And you can imagine that you're climbing up to different floors of this castle. And I'd imagine that the servants probably have the basement or the lower, maybe somewhere in the lower parts of the castle, the lower floors. But Carolyn Miss likes to reference that the highest height of the castle, or yes, the castle, is the penthouse. As we rise up into states of consciousness. But you need to clear away, there's different rooms in this castle that you need to experience. It's taking you along your journey. And compassion is one of them. We don't truly feel compassionate until we've gone through things. I have a totally different mindset about money, about people's struggles than I did before because of having to face my own fears. I'm like, oh, this really is hard. So your old habits start to quickly be replaced with pure intentions. Yeah, I feel like once you become more of a leader, you're giving back, the shift starts to happen more rapidly in one, but there's still more to learn here. I think there are a lot of people who give back, but there's a lot of ego involved, and I'll probably be talking about that in future videos as well. There's still a lot of ego involved. If people are they're talking about their goals, they're talking about, oh, look at how much numbers we've achieved. To me, that person nobody knows, people don't know that they're doing that. They just think that they're just speaking their life. They're just talking about their experiences. But if we're so focused on external goals and numbers, and we haven't yet let go of like, oh, it needs to be this much amount of money and it needs to look this way and this big, then we're still attached. People say, oh, money isn't everything, or there's nothing wrong with money. Money isn't evil. But your ego will always attach to money. You got to be careful. We're finicky. Our mind is finicky. If you are being put through a very difficult circumstances, you're blessed. Because that means that you're here to have pure intentions. People who are given access to things easily, they don't even know. They don't even know it. They just think that's all there is. When people, they're working really hard and they're making a lot of money, that's their reality. They don't see any other thing. They couldn't even imagine anything different. When you can't control your circumstances, you are at the mercy of life. How does that feel? When you are at complete mercy, you are on your knees. How does that feel? That's where the freedom is. When you have nothing. Nothing. Or you feel as though, okay? I know we can be dramatic as humans. And I can go there. I got a little Leo in my chart. Okay, so we have here, the next part is, let's talk about leadership and training. This is where you're called to give back. You want to give back. You want to help. You want to assist. And those intentions start to be birthed within you. I know for me personally, when I'm giving back or I'm helping or I'm assisting, I have to do it in a certain way. I had issues almost as soon as I started doing tarot readings. I started to have problems because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be shallow with these readings, and I don't want to misguide people. As a leader in training or a leader that the universe is calling for you to be, you are the shepherd leading the sheep. And I know people like to say, oh, lost sheep. The sheep are lost. They do need guidance. But the sheep eventually can become the shepherd. So it's not like the sheep just are the sheep. The sheep eventually, you were a sheep. You've been a sheep many times in your life. You felt lost many times in your life. But the shepherd is discerning. So I talked about grace. I talked about integrity, honor, discernment. Discernment. When you exercise discernment, this is where honor, integrity comes. When we are acquiescing to people's demands, we're not being a good leader. As a leader, you have to lead yourself. You have to be discerning for yourself, and you have to be honest about, is this really sincere, or is this just me giving into the ego's demands here? When you're saying, oh, I'll do anything for people. That's not what the universe is training you to be. It's not training you to be a people pleaser. Jesus, Christ. Did I say he's, yeah, I meant Yeshua. Yeshua was a rebel. The messiahs in this world are rebels. Listen to them talk. They are, and they can be, a little triggering for people because they're honest and they're direct and they hold you accountable. Do the work. And they say it with love. And they say it with passion, directness, a seriousness. It's like, whoa, okay, do the work. You're not here to please the crowd. You're not here to be a crowd pleaser. If you ever feel like that is your task or your job, look at the entertainers, the celebrities. That's what they do. Crowd pleasers. Entertainer. You become an entertainer, not a teacher, not a leader. You've become an entertainer. And that's what most of the content that people watch, consume, movies, TVs, and YouTube. It's entertaining. And there's nothing wrong with entertainment, but there's a difference between entertainment and knowledge. So you have to be discerning. Am I here to entertain people? Or am I here to help people? We don't help people by not holding them accountable and saying, yeah, feel bad about yourself and good. Yeah, life is really hard. And I guess you can just sit here and wallow in your feelings. Or you can empower them, give them power, give them their power, display your power. Those leaders, the messiahs in this world, come from a place of empowerment. They speak from power. They know what real, authentic power feels like, tastes like, and they want to give that to people. They're passionate about it. How can I help you to free yourself, free your mind, so that you no longer have to be a victim of any circumstance? How could I possibly gift someone that? Not be a victim of any circumstance. The only way is you got to go inside. So the sheep herder helps the sheep, leads them, guides them, protects them, aids them, helps, they help them to heal, but they hold them accountable, okay? There's a bit of firmness. There's a firm hand there. You need a firm hand. You need a directness. This is not about power over the people. I'm a leader, I power you. Don't have power over anyone but yourself. A true leader does not exercise power over people. It's not about how well can I influence as many people as possible. It's about, universe, what do you need me to do? What do you need me to do? You need me to help one person? You need me to help 10 people? You need me to help nobody this month because it's time to just chill? That's what I'm going to do. But naturally, you're going to want to give back. You're going to want to help. You're going to want to assist people in some way, shape, or form, because that's just the way divinity works. When you found the light, when you found the peace, when you found your heart, you want to give it. You want to share that gift with everyone else. All right. So integrity, grace. Grace, grace comes in definitely initiation part 2 where you're experiencing that non-resistance as well. But part 3, you truly are starting to recognize grace and you're starting to feel more at peace and you're not crying as much. You're not feeling desperate as much, and you will feel desperate at times, and that's normal. But at some point you're going to realize grace. Why does grace keep showing up in my life? Because you're a divine child. Grace is always here. It's us, the psychological warfare in us that says otherwise. Okay. So now we're ready to move on to part 5. This is completion. Annihilation of the ego. So it feels like your ego is dying. The ego doesn't die. The ego is always there, but your ego does go through an annihilation. It has. Poof, like chipping away at it little by little. As the child rests into a deeper conscious state, the ego takes a back seat to the soul. The child has been united with God as the true self is born, the Messiah, the kings and queens of the kingdom. So who is your true self? Your true self is the Messiah. Yeshua, Christ, is a prototype. Buddha, prototype. The child has been united with God as the true self is born, the Messiah, the kings and queens of the kingdom. The kings and queens of the kingdom are not here to be popular. The way that they show leadership in this world, backwards. Look at most of the wonderful teachers that we have today. Obscurity. They lived their life, a lot of their life in obscurity. Even while they were doing work, even while they were helping people, they were still living in obscurity because they knew not to feed their ego. They knew it was just about doing the work. That's it. What's my assignment? What am I here to do? And this is where the narcissist really starts to, like, it really, really just completely starts to fall away. The facade falls away. It can't hold up. At this level, no. At the other levels, it's definitely struggling. We all have an inner narcissist in us, the ego in us that wants to just be like, it's about me, it's about me. At this level, you know it's not about you. You're a small part in a whole. You're a piece in the whole. Look at your birth chart. You're programmed. And the Messiah is a program too. This is a predestined program. If you're here watching this video, this is your predestined program. It's your predestined program. This is what you're meant to create for yourself. Your true self, what you were born with. You just had to go through the journey of taking off all of those facades and coming to this point of completion. So it turns out you weren't here to inherit a huge lump of gold. You weren't here to inherit the best life ever. You were here to be the best person ever from the inside out and enjoy life from your lens. And that's how you would create the best life ever. It's from your inner lens. That's what decides how you're going to have the best life ever. Whether wealth and gold shows up, the universe, honestly, you attract it. You do. When you've found that treasure from within, that is when you're going to you're going to magnetize opportunities and treasure on the outside too. But here's the thing about completion. It's divinely timed. And this requires total surrender. Total. Before, with that divine child and the fairy tale curiosity, yeah, there was a bit of surrender that you needed to enter into the castle and inherit that kingdom. And then you had to go to part 3 and then part 4 here where we're talking about the totality of surrender. You're learning surrender. But at this level of completion, you're living more in a state of surrender. So this is not intellectualized. At this point, you have already been forced to embrace this. That's how you know you're going through your initiation. When things in your life are just moving about and you don't have any control. I emphasize this because when people are going on YouTube and they're talking about how, look, I left this. Look, I left my job. I'm free. We don't decide. We don't decide when we get to complete our cycles, our karmic cycles, our wheel of karma. We don't decide the timing of the reversal of karmas. It's not in our control. That's a complete illusion. Look at the people who are telling you that you can control everything. Watch how their patterns unfold and watch how their life unfolds. Have they really changed and healed, or are they just telling themselves that? And the reason why I really wanted to create this channel is to help people get clear so that they're more grounded in their spiritual experience, because there is an ungroundedness. And Carolyn, I always keep calling her Mice, but it's Mace. There it is. Carolyn Mace emphasized that we get high off of that crown chakra. You can get high off of it like nobody's business. And when I started doing readings, when I created my channel, I got high off those readings. Before, I was more grounded in my approach, and it was more gradual. But once I got access to that, that spiritual ego took off like nobody's business. Oh my gosh, I'm divine. Divine's like, okay, calm down. You still got to do the day-to-day work, my love. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then you have to keep watching the videos, like the tarot videos, maybe to keep that high. I barely watch any now. I like making one from time to time because I like the knowledge and the insight, and it's really cool to experience that with the community. But, for the most part, I'm like, I gotta wake up every day and just be like, all right, what am I feeling today? And just live my life. Keep it really simple. So we can get high off of that crown chakra. That's something you want to be aware of. And make sure you take back your power and understand that it's about the grounded approach to life. Whatever's showing up in your life is your quest, right? So initiation part 1, you have the knight and he's facing his quest. This is your quest. If your quest is to do this or to do that, whatever problems, that's your quest. Whatever obstacles, illusionary obstacles or temporary problems that are showing up in your life, that's your spiritual quest. Put your energy into that. Into finding peace in spite of circumstances and remaining resilient, true to your heart from within. Anytime you go to the external to change it, you're disempowering yourself. To feel better about. Anytime you go to the external to solve the problem. If a problem is showing up, the only answer is surrender. People say, well, take action. That works on lower states of consciousness. But if you asked the divine, what is true happiness? Your test is going to be, the divine is expecting much more from you. They're like, total surrender. There's no other way. There's no other way. Total surrender. So that's what it takes to enter into kingship and queenship. Okay, it's the opposite of what you maybe thought it was about. The kingship and queenship is about ownership of reclaiming your soul, reclaiming your heart, being sincere, and surrendering and understanding that you're here to serve. You are here to serve the kingdom. It's like, oh, wait, I was a king and queen. I thought I was supposed to be ordering people around. That's not what a divine king and queen is. The orders have been built in you. You've been given your orders. You're pre-programmed with them. And it has a lot to do with you following your heart. And your heart is going to call for you to be true, for you to be honest. It's not going to call for you to, the heart isn't calling for you to pursue your desires. Desires are tricky. The heart is not calling you. My heart was calling you to be honest. It was like, go the hard route. Don't try to take any shortcuts in life. That's what my heart told me to do. No shortcuts. Do the real work, grind, and heal from the inside out. That's what my heart told me to do. It didn't tell me to go chase external validation. Never. It never told me to do that. That was ego. That was intellectual. That was mind. That was reason. That was impulse. But it was never my heart. Right. Thank you guys so much. I think that was a thorough investigation into the journey of the divine kingdom, the journey of the divine child to the divine kingdom, kingship and queenship. I might add something about the quest to the page, or I don't know, maybe we'll just reference that. Like, it's a spiritual quest, right? You think about all of those battles of the night, fighting the dragon, and yeah, there's so many signs, symbols, and synchronicities in life. Everything is created by the divine. Every story, everything. People will tell you it's not, because they don't understand. They think it's black and white. No such thing. It's all God. It's all God, and it's contrast, and we need it. How do you know light without shadow? How do you know love without heartbreak and depression? You can't really know it unless you've experienced the opposite. And it's always this ping-ponging. Think about it. Why are you different from your parents? They were here to introduce you into programming and show you the contrast. They were here to introduce you to the quest. Knight, this is your quest. They were here to introduce you to your quest and show you how to become the hero and the heroine of your journey. All right. I hope that helps you guys in some way, and I will see you next time for another episode. I think in another episode, I might be shooting it after this. I'm going to talk about the also different aspects of what a spiritual breaking free the matrix looks like, what it really looks like. Or is it inception? Is it a dream and a dream and a dream and a dream? Or did you actually wake up? So I'll be talking about that in another episode. I will see you guys next time. Have a beautiful day or evening whenever you're watching this. Bye.